Welcome to the highlights video of our feature discussion on storytelling. I'm very excited to bring this one to you. This was a fantastic conversation with a great panel. This is only about 20 minutes of a conversation that lasted for over an hour. If you get a chance, I highly suggest you go back and watch the original video, but for now, enjoy the highlights. Hello. Welcome to today's live featured discussion about storytelling. I am your host, Curtis Anderson. It is a pleasure to have you here today. So let's introduce our panel here real quick.
Hey, I'm Jeff Garvin, erstwhile actor, musician, now novelist.
Erin, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a director, writer, actor.
Hi, I'm Zeke. I created Fun Size Horror.
Now, Zeke, that's all well and good, but I think we're all interested in who your little friend is.
Yeah.
I'm Skelly. I'm the face of Fun Size Horror.
Kids, don't do drugs. All of us got drawn into this business in one way or another. What drew you to storytelling, and how did you get started?
So storytelling in general, I think I remember being a kid, as I think we all were at some point, and my neighbors had a stage in their basement growing up, and so my sister and I would always go over to their place, and we'd put on these plays and shows, and I literally started like one-man banding from like that moment where I was like, all right, let me direct you guys, and then come up with a concept, and then like be in it as well. And I charge admission for people to come see. Like I charge our parents admission to come see the show. So that was like the early days of being a multi-hyphenate. I did a lot of plays growing up in like at high school. I went to a high school that had a dance program and a strong musical theater program. And I was just really mediocre at both of those. So I was really a strong ensemble team player for a while, and then kind of more of the same in college, and then started segueing from acting into writing and directing really over the last few years in LA, and it's been a lot of fun.
What drew you to storytelling, and you've actually crossed this gamut of different styles of storytelling. So how did you land where you ended up now?
Well, my answer is one part idealism and one part realism or practicality. I think, to be honest, at a very early age, I just enjoyed attention. And so everything became a microphone, the end of a jump rope, a rake handle. And then I discovered that I could, goof off in the school play and get laughs. And it was all over at that point. It started off being about acting and singing, where I could get that immediate feedback. And then, I had a decent career as a guest star actor in my late teens to late 20s, for about, as a 15-year decade for me. And then when I quit acting, the band became my passion. And that was really where I started to tell stories. I went to Chapman University and got a degree in filmmaking. And so writing and directing was my first formal training. So that plus songwriting was really where I started to grind my nose on the grindstone of learning how to deliver a story. At some point, the band just became incompatible with the life that I wanted to have. Being on the road for months at a time did not work. And so I had to reinvent myself, and I needed to do something creative that I could do on my own with very little equipment at home. And I started writing novels.
I started storytelling by driving my friends crazy when they would make Star Wars characters or G.I. Joe. And they would be like, all right, let's just make them battle. And I'm like, no, we have to dramatically build up to it. We'd have stories and stuff that we'd have to tell. I would set up scenes and everything through that. And then that eventually evolved into my birthday parties, where me writing a script and then friends coming over and my mom renting a giant VHS cam recorder from the local video store. #I'm old. And then we would make a movie for my birthday. And then I would watch the movie and be like, this looks terrible. What went wrong? And then try to reverse engineer why it looked terrible and nothing like the movies that I was seeing on the screen. So then I've been out in LA for a while. Came out here wanting to write and direct. Fell into a lot of editing and fell into a lot of frustration, as people want to do out here. And it just kind of got to a point where I realized both not only me, but most people that I surrounded myself with were all very frustrated because they wanted to tell stories, and nobody was really giving them that yes. It's kind of a general misconception among many people that you need somebody to of wealth or means to give you a yes, or some sort of be on some sort of echelon above you to give you permission to tell stories. And I realized I had a very large network of very talented people that were in the same boat as me. So I figured, why don't we just all get together with a purpose? And that purpose was, let's make 5-minute horror shorts in time for Halloween. The goal is to make 31. And let's all help each other. Let's help each other as best we can, because we're all very busy. And we formed kind of this really awesome collective. Erin made a really awesome short for us. Curtis, you made some really awesome shorts for us. Jeff, you did nothing for us. I'm not telling you. Kind of maintain that spirit of let's help filmmakers helping filmmakers making films, where it doesn't really matter if you have $100 or a couple $1,000. You'll be treated equally, and we'll help you as best we can to make what you can.
What actually drew you to filmmaking, like visual storytelling, as the way that you wanted to tell stories?
Stupidity.
What do you mean by that, Zeke? Could you please elaborate on your stupidity?
Well, I mean, I think it was, it's hashtag again, I'm old. Being a child of the 80s, you kind of grew up. I grew up around all these making of specials, making of Star Wars, making of Indiana Jones. And I think that was the first, like that era with like HBO and PBS and everything. It was the first era where like a generation was really exposed to filmmaking on a massive level. And so I thought, that's what I was just kind of naturally drawn to.
I primarily know you from your web series, Once Upon an Anonymous.
Yes.
And I know you from the rock opera that you did with that, and Game of Thrones, the musical. And so, like my primary dealings with you have always been either stage or web. What drew you to that style of storytelling?
It was cheap, I guess, like cheaper to do that. The web series that people do know me from is probably about like my 4th one. It's just sort of the one that popped. It started as a parody video because I don't know if people out there know the show Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time is a television show, a series on ABC. It follows the tales of all of the fairy tale characters that you remember from Disney films and fiction that's available, without copyright. And they are combined together in a single town where all of a sudden they live normal lives. But wait, it's because of a curse. That's right. So there we go.
Yes. And then there is enter straight woman, and she sort of finds herself in this fairy tale land. And it's played by Jennifer Morrison. She plays this character named Emma Swan. We have the same initials, and we were born the same year, and we have the same face. I love fairy tales. I always have growing up, and so I checked out the show, and I loved it. And then I was taking a break from writing. I'm one of those people too that likes to do a lot of different things, and I'll write multiple projects at once. And so I took a break from writing to write, and wrote this sketch. Threw it up, shot it for like $200 in one night. There was like a helicopter chase happening while we were filming, so we had to pause like 2 hours for that. We got it up, we threw it up, and it became a hit. And we ended up doing a follow-up entire season of a web series. And then as a filmmaker, I wanted to grow and do different things. So I thought, why not do a musical film? And I always loved like Rocky Horror and Hedwig and those kinds of experiences, those cult films where, there's music involved. And I have a background in experiential marketing. So, so I made this film. I ended up writing the music for it. And about that time is when I started doing Fun Size Horror, where I met lovely Zeke here. Yes. And honestly, those 2 projects, doing Fun Size and doing the parody video, have brought everything else into my life. Everything can kind of be traced back to those 2 specific things.
One of the things that I've noticed in all of the conversation that we've had thus far is that none of us are single trick ponies when it comes to this kind of thing. Everybody has a variety of different things that they're involved in or that they do that is all focused on getting stories out. What is the process that you use to be able to get these stories out of your head and onto paper or film or video or whatever?
By any means necessary. I wish there were a consistent tool, but it's more like you have a toolbox, and it's like you have drills and hammers and pickaxes, and you approach the mountain and whatever that mountain is, and you have to figure out what it's made of and figure out what you get to use. So if I'm going to be like totally day-to-day specific about it, ideas arise. That's how neurology works. But they tend to arise when you have a disciplined practice of making time to allow them to arise. So I sit down at I drop my kids off at school, I sit down at my desk, and I face a blank page, whether there are any ideas or not.
Well, I have a very specific tool that I use, if that's helpful. I will say when I am switching, especially back into the writing phase, I will say that the thing that, as somebody that is also very easily distracted and lazy and unfocused at times, what helps me is to put like my timer on my iPhone for 15 minutes. And a lot of times that's all I have. And I just look at that blank page and I set the timer 15, and I'm like, you know what? Whatever I can get done in 15 minutes is good enough. And there's no judgment about how much or how little is on the page. If it makes sense to the script, if it makes sense to the story, I don't care. It's just more about like getting into the habit of writing again. And almost always I want to go past the 15 minutes. The ideas never come when I'm like sitting in front of my computer. So I personally love to take like just really long walks midday. And that is almost always when any kind of writer's block I have, or any idea, or any like situation where there's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, for some reason, taking that, the solution just always appears.
I know that I do a lot of my best work, whether it's preparing for a role or whether it's developing a story idea. Journaling will help guide my brain in the direction that I want to go, where I can just jot down ideas and maybe just string a couple things together in a couple sentences, to kind of put myself in that place. Zeke, do you have a practice or a process or things that are consistent in the work that you do to get to where you're at?
I can only speak to all the things I've done wrong. Journaling, as you said, is a really great idea. It's knowing that no matter where you are in the process, you can always go back and fix it, but you need to get to the end first before you go back. Because if you start fixing things in the middle of the process, you're going to lose your way to getting to your destination.
I agree with you on that.
And
I think it's one of the reasons why you and I work together so well is because we both believe in the vomit pass.
Yes.
Where it's just get it all down. Get it all down. We'll fix it in post.
There's this, I think, pernicious myth out there that creativity has to be a special sacred time and you have to light candles and darken the room. And it's not true. You can do it. My friend Jeff Zentner, who's written 2 really popular books, won the Morris Award for The Serpent King. He wrote his books on his phone on the train on the way to work. Like, you just don't have to have a special sacred space. You can create anywhere, anytime. And in the gig environment that we're in the gig economy, you kind of have to be a mercenary about it and do it wherever you can and whenever you can. Anytime you can put limits or boundaries on something, it helps you, to have a vessel that you need to fill. Whether it's, well, the first draft has to be 80,000 words, or you got to write 1,000 words today. Having some quantity to work with. For some reason, all you need is that one handle of limitations, and you can start to fill up that bucket.
Well, and that's the old Jaws story too. Like the shark didn't work, so we got a better movie because we couldn't see the shark. Your limitations can sometimes be your best friend and your best ally.
Yeah, this actually, like when I write things the fastest, when things kind of come out, is when you kind of like limit, the infinite possibilities when you sit down at the page of like, this could be anywhere. When you're like, okay, I have to write something and this is what I have access to when I go into production with it. That's like the most helpful. because you know what to write to.
Are there any unique hurdles that you're being challenged with right now in your effort to tell a story? Like, is the business getting in the way of the actual storytelling?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things that has come up, which is a wonderful problem to have, is like commerce is starting to come into play here. And I've been approached to do some projects, for actually getting paid, which is fantastic.
It's the dream.
Yes. And the interesting thing that I'm struggling with is creatively if I really want to do them, so that's something that's new, because I've usually just always sort of either been a part of other people's projects or have created my own that really I enjoy doing. And not that I don't enjoy challenges, and like I said, this might just be a little bit of a limitation that actually sparks some really cool ideas. But I very much love the genre space and blending that. And so when somebody's asking me to write like a straight something or other, it's hard. I'm not as like thirsty for it right now. And so that's something that I know takes a big part of my time. So it's about, sort of deciding if that's the right thing, or do I trust my gut and dedicate my time towards like another project that just feels more like a passion project that I want to do. So yeah, that's a new challenge for me.
Enrolling other people in the concept in a very small period of time and having them be interested in what happens next, that's a whole other kind of storytelling called marketing. Those of us who are in the sort of working arts community, you have to figure out how to tell the story of your story to people who might buy it. And that is always the thing that requires far more time and energy than you think it will when you jump in.
These discussions are for people who are looking to take the step into actually being creative, telling their stories, doing the work that they want to do. Is there any advice that you can give them that you would want them to walk away from today with?
I think getting to know who you are as a person is essential. You can't operate from very long from anything else. So being authentic and merging that with a commercial space is the key to creative and financial success in this business.
Reject preciousness. And what I mean by that is learn to identify the things that you do that work by the way other people respond to them instead of the way you respond to them. Because if you enjoy producing, but you want to make a living at it, you have to learn how to produce things that other people will respond to. So I'm not saying don't follow your heart. I'm not saying don't write what you like. What I'm saying is when you get to that point where you're starting to have the conversation about a transaction, you really have to focus on the echo that your voice makes.
When you go out and you network and you try to find other people to collaborate with, don't worry about the people that are on the rungs of the ladder higher than you. Work with people that are on your level. Work with people that are below your level. And then also like enjoy your life. I made myself miserable by putting my life on hold to Filmmaker for a very long time. And I got nothing done. And it wasn't until I realized that I needed to actually be living my life and enjoying that and not worrying about maker being a specific thing, that I was able to actually start actually being creative. And it freed up my mind a lot because I was actually my mind was in a place that it could actually tell stories instead of focusing on wanting to tell stories.
I think what I said is valid, but I also know that it's not the message I want to send to the audience you described right before you asked the question. Because I want to back up. So put that reject preciousness block up on this shelf for a second. On this shelf is find something where you enjoy the bullshit involved. And here's what I mean. If this is your circle of time, okay, if this is your circle of time, this much of that circle is the writing or the shooting or the production or the fun part. The rest of it is, for a writer is, conversations with agents, going to writers' conferences, conversations pitching stories, all that other stuff, the auditioning. I quit acting because I hated auditioning, and I'm like, this is a terrible profession for me. So find something where you enjoy that 80% of the other stuff, and that's where you can have a career, where you can not be miserable. If you're doing something where you only like painting, but you hate going to the art store, and you hate talking to potential art buyers, and you hate going to galleries, and you hate looking at art shows, you're not going to have a good time. Make that a hobby. So find something where you can enjoy the bullshit part. That's my advice.
If there's one thing that I think every creative artist type person, no matter what field, genre, medium you're going to work in, I think it's important that everybody have a solid support system. Now, that may come in the source of friends, that may come in the form of collaborators, family, whatever that source of support is. I think it's really important for everybody to have that, because no matter how well things go, there's always going to be that time when it isn't so good, and you're going to need somebody there to help keep you from going too deep in the pit. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Erin, it's been a real pleasure. I hope I can bring you in on these again. Jeff,
thank you,
buddy. This is the good stuff. And Zeke, yeah, we're gonna have to do more of these, because clearly Skelly is a star, and I think we're gonna have to see a lot more of him. So,
well, I do want to say, like, I'd be open to writing something with you guys for Fun Size Horror. It seemed like Zeke started off the whole thing just being like kind of resentful toward me for not having done anything. And at the end of the day, I just want talented and more famous people to like me. And so let's write something.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I do want to recommend, if you get a chance, go back and watch the original video. There's so much good stuff in there. Now, for our Patreon followers, I wanted to let you know that exclusive content from this video is coming to the page. If you're not on Patreon yet, now's the time to join. It's as little as $1, and you can always donate more, and you get access to all kinds of cool things that are going to be coming out. We'll see you soon.